keep choosing the people who are emotionally unavailable, and when it ends, you promise yourself that you're never going to do it again, but end up just doing that. And that used to be me. So I remember the first time it felt like a pattern, and I was 22 that time. My heart wide open and convinced that this person was different because of the way they looked at me. No one else had ever done so. We had perfect days, laughing on the couch, long texts that made me blush, and those delicious feeling of being seen. And then the silence started slowly, a slow fade in the beginning. A missed weekend, a text that said busy and nothing more. And I told myself, it's temporary. And I told myself that maybe I am overreacting. And so I waited. And the next time they reappeared, all that rush came back into me just like a drug would set in a high. I felt euphoric, alive, and convinced that I had earned their love back. And this cycle repeated enough number of times that it didn't feel like dating anymore. It felt like an addiction. Then I finally sat with why I kept choosing this. And then I realized it wasn't just about them. It was about what my brain had learned long before I even knew their names. Growing up, my attachments were inconsistent. Love and attention showed up in fits and starts. Some days I was celebrated, and on others I was left to handle my emotions by myself. And without realizing it, my nervous system had started taking copious notes. Unpredictability became normal. So when someone mirrored the push and pull, my body recognized it as familiar safety, and my mind screamed that it was painful. But to my nervous system, that was feeling safe. And you know what the weirdest part was? It was how irresistible this pattern felt. Imagine a slot machine. Every so often, you get a reward. And similarly, I got mine too. A late night message, an unexpected apology, a weekend that was magical. And those intermittent rewards triggered the dopamine in me, and my brain started craving the next one. The unpredictability amplifies the reward. And that, my dear, is not romance. That's conditioning. I wasn't addicted to the person, I realized. I was just addicted to the hope and the emotional spikes that they produced. The silence made the reunion feel like an epic win. The return of the connection felt earned, and my brain loved the drama of winning back affection. But there's more to this than just chemistry. In the quiet moments between the highs, I realized I was doing a lot of emotional labor, anticipating moods, smoothing over cracks, giving more. I felt valuable only when somebody leaned in on my care. Fixing or rescuing people became a way of me trying to prove my worth to others. If they finally opened up, I would whisper to myself saying, hey, see, you are enough. And that validation kept me tethered. When someone avoided intimacy, it triggered a familiar old ache, fear of abandonment. So instead of walking away, I clung on harder, convinced that if I tried a little more or if I loved a little louder, they would just stay back with me. And there was a lot of these signs that I missed, clear red flags. But of course, they were dressed up as charm. This person was hot one week and distant the next. They made grand romantic gestures, but avoided the boring steady stuff. No weekly calls, no consistent plan, no introduction to friends, or no plans about the futures even. They dodge conversations like this or anything about the future or how we actually felt. So if you felt the sting of being kept at an arm's length, you know exactly what I learned to spot these patterns the hard way, with heartbreak being my teacher. But awareness changes everything, my dear. Once I saw the pattern for what it was, I could start to choose differently. And now you would think that choosing differently was an easy way out. But of course, no. Learning to choose differently wasn't about willpower. It was about rewiring my entire reward system and building real boundaries. The first change I made was simple but radical, and it was essential. I started naming my limits out loud, not as an ultimatum, but as a way to protect my nervous system. The first time someone went cold, instead of chasing, I text, hey, I notice you've been distant. I need to know if you're available to talk about this and where this is going. Then I waited. Waiting at first felt terrifying, but every time I honored that pause, I learned that I could survive the uncertainty without spiraling. Saying what I needed meant I valued myself enough to ask for clarity. Next, I learned to regulate my emotions in the moment. Whenever distance triggered that old panic, I used a 3-minute routine. Breathe deeply. I feel anxious. I feel unwanted. And then I ask one question. What am I assuming right now? And most of the time, my assumptions were just stories and not facts. And those tiny breaks between feeling and action gave me the space to choose my responses that aligned with my boundaries. So instead of acting out of fear, I stopped from sending that third desperate text or reinventing myself to fit someone else's contour. I also started replacing the intermittent emotional highs with steady sources of rewards. I doubled down on hobbies and on work that made me feel proud about myself. I celebrated small wins like a completed project, a weekend with friends, and let those moments create reliable dopamine highs. The kind that doesn't depend on someone else's attention. The more I fed my nervous system with consistent, healthy rewards, the less intoxicating the unpredictability and the emotionally unavailable partners became. There were painful choices along the way. I had to confront my tendency to rescue and my belief that love required sacrifices. Often, the people who couldn't meet me were kind and charismatic in moments. They just couldn't sustain the emotional availability. My turning point came when I realized walking away wasn't punishment, it was an act of self-respect. If someone consistently couldn't meet my needs, the loving thing I could do for myself was to take a step back. Healing the deeper wounds that drove my selection meant doing some inner work. I tried therapy. Attachment focused work helped me to trace the patterns back to early relationships and see how my brain had adapted to survive. I journaled the stories I was repeating, wrote letters to my younger self, and practiced somatic exercises to release the tension that lived in my body. Little by little, the frantic need to be the one who changes them loosened. I started to notice healthier matches, people who were consistent, who made plans and kept them, who introduced me to their world, and those relationships that followed felt stable and not like a roller coaster. So if you've been watching this and it's too close to home, start with one small action today. Pick one boundary you're willing to hold. Maybe it's not replying to silence 3 times in a row. Maybe it's insisting on a conversation about what you both want before investing more. Then, when you feel triggered, try the 3-minute regulation. Breathe, name, ask. If you want a concrete step right now, write in the comments, I'm done chasing, and name one boundary you will set this week. Say it out and commit to it. The reason I want you to do it is that it is simple and saying it makes it real. I won't lie, the pull of emotionally unavailable people can be very powerful. It feels addictive because it plays on an old wiring, but it's not permanent. With awareness, clear boundaries, and new sources of steady reward, you can break the cycle. You just have to be willing to see the pattern, to choose differently, and to protect your heart. I learned that version of love that I wanted the most wasn't the dramatic type that left me dizzy and depleted. It was kind in itself. And once I started insisting on that, everything changed. If this landed for you, do the bold thing right now. Comment, I'm done chasing, and name the first boundary you'll set. And hit like if this felt real. Subscribe for more such videos about reclaiming your emotional life, and share this with someone who's still stuck in that addictive loop. So more videos next week. Stay tuned and we will be in touch.